Hi, Miss Millender here, and today we're going to talk about observations and inferences. I liked this image. It's a little creepy, but I thought it was cool. So what is an observation? An observation is a fact or a piece of data that you gather using your senses. Well, what are the 5 primary senses that you use anyway? Think about this for a second, and then I'll list them for you. Okay, so we have got seeing or vision, hearing, smelling, also called olfaction, tasting, and touching. All right, so these are how you gather data. Something smells bad or feels soft or tastes sour. The sound is piercing or something looks blue. So that's how you gather data. However, this day and age, we can actually use extensions of our senses in order to gather information that we couldn't otherwise. So for example, seeing. What kinds of things can you think of that allow you to see things that you could not otherwise see? Let's take a look at some. Spectroscope. So if you look at light, it will divide it up into the colors that are contained within that light. A satellite, if you have satellite TV or whatever. A magnifying glass. A microscope. Some binoculars. A telescope. And can you come up with any others? I mean, clearly this is not a full list. But so those tools are extensions of the sense of sight. So what about hearing? What things, think about this for a second, allow you to hear things that you would not otherwise be able to hear? Things like a hearing aid. As you lose your hearing, these can help allow you to hear things better. Speakers, right? They can make whatever you're listening to really loud or really soft. Satellites again. A stethoscope allows you to hear the heart. And of course, all of your cell phones and things like that. And I'm sure you can think up additional stuff as well. What about tasting? Well, that was a little tougher. I'm sure that there are chemical tests and things that you can do to detect low amounts of certain things. Like in your water might taste fine, but there may be unhealthy levels of lead in it or something. So there are all kinds of chemical tests, but there are also people who are trained to be able to detect certain tastes. They have what is called an educated palate, or someone who's a wine taster. They've been trained to pick up certain things in foods and things. All right, what about smelling? This one, what do we use? Actually, you see a lot of this that extends our sense of smell. Maybe you got it. Right, dogs. The dogs can be trained with to detect drugs. They can be to detect accelerants, which are used to start fires. They are trained to detect bodies, and they have a sense of smell that is 4 to 6 orders of magnitude stronger than our own, which is unbelievable. And an order of magnitude is something that's 10 times bigger than something else. So that was the first thing that I thought of. And I also came up with perfume developers. They are able to detect certain underlying scents. And that's even true with if we go back to the wine tasting, because smelling and taste are so interlocked. All right, what about touching? This one, I'm sure you can think of some others, but what I came up with were these metal detectors. Now, they detect a magnetic field, which we actually do not have the ability to detect, so that gives us a sense that we don't otherwise have. Medical instruments, for example, do things that are much more detailed than we could with our own fingers, and obviously robots. There I am with forgetting my words again. And robots take over for our hands a lot. All right. So now you know how observations can be made. But then once you have your observations, you can further subdivide them into 2 categories. The first one is qualitative. And qualitative has to do with the quality of something, or descriptive term, such as her hair is purple, her hair is braided, or the kittens are soft. So here the purple and the braided is the as sense of sight. Obviously the kittens are soft is the sense of touch. We can also classify them as quantitative, which has to do with quantities, numbers, things that we've used a tool to measure or count. For example, there are 2 kittens and the trombone registered 140 decibels. So those are the 2 types of observations that we can make. So we make observations with the 5 senses. Those observations can be qualitative, which are descriptive terms, or quantitative, which are numbers. Now, what do we do with those observations? Well, from those observations, we can come up with inferences. Well, an inference is a conclusion based on information that you have gathered. You could also define it as an assumption based on fact, or an educated guess based on observations. So all of those are just different definitions for what an inference is. All right, so let's do some of this work together. Here I have a picture. So what I'm going to do here is actually make an inference first. So I'm going to say that this person was wearing flip-flops on the beach. Well, okay, but how did I come up with that? Well, here are my supporting observations. I say the skin of the feet is pink. Now I could have said the feet are sunburned, because most people in our culture know what a sunburn looks like. But I just made it a little bit more specific. The skin of the feet is pink, except for 2 stripes of white coming from between the first 2 toes. A fairly accurate description. I don't think anybody would disagree with me. My other observation, supporting observation, is that the color of the wood is similar to that of wood that is weathered at the beach. And I think most people have had enough experience being at the beach or at the shore to know that that's the color the wood turns. Now, could someone argue with that? Probably, but it's a fairly good supporting observation for that picture. Now, the way we're going to work is we're going to, during the labs anyway, we're going to do we're going to do observations first, then make inferences and go back to those observations and look at them. But for this exercise, we're going to just start with the inferences first. All right. Now, here are some pictures of strange things that you may or may not know what they are. So my sole purpose of putting this slide in is that you keep in mind that your own personal experience and your culture plays a role in what you observe and how you interpret things, or your inferences. So some of these things, you don't have any idea what they are. So you couldn't make a general observation like someone in that culture could. So just something to keep in mind. All right, so here I have 4 photos. Because they're photos, the only observations you're going to be able to make are ones using vision, and that's okay. But you can imagine that if you were in any of these situations, there would be certain sounds and smells and textures that that you could include along with those other observations. So what I'd like you to do is choose one of these pictures, and then in your notebook make an inference about the picture, about what's happening there, and then list at least 2 observations that support your inference. Okay, 2 observations, fine. If you want to do more, that's also fine. All right, so take a look at these pictures, make an inference, support it with 2 observations, and bring those inferences and observations to class tomorrow. All right, that was fun. Enjoy, and here are the pictures.